let's have it. I'd like you to meet Tommy McGuire and his combo.
Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, the one and only podcast of the official Madness American fan service. I'm Laurie, along with my co-host Poly, here to bring you news, reviews, and deep dives into the nutty sound of the British pop band Madness. Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, episode 3. I'm Laurie.
And I'm Polly.
Hi, Polly. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Excited to be talking about Absolutely.
Yeah, this is your album, right? This is the one that introduced you to Madness.
It is the first Madness album I got, and I got it kind of by accident, so very near and dear to me.
Good. I'm excited too. This has been a lot of fun so far, and you and I have we've sat down, we've hatched out a plan for episodes through the end of the year, and I think this is looking really cool. Before we start with the album, let's go to our messages from people with the communicator. Okay, so follow-ups from our last episode. Our first 2 episodes had a combined total of 185 listens. That's as of 2 p.m. today. That's not too bad. We are now available on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts, and we will very soon be available on Google Podcasts. So those of you that are spreading the word, thank you so much. Word of mouth is excellent. We're getting emails, as I mentioned last episode, from both sides of the Atlantic. A lot of very positive response. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for that.
And thank you to Madness Information Service for mentioning our podcast in issue 1112. So we got a shout out from the official Madness Information Service. So thank you. And so we did get some listener feedback. We had one listener in the Midwest who says, big ups to Polly for using the phrases Jamaican diaspora and moving on to Tarzan's nuts in the same show. Apparently that's not something that people expected.
We're highbrow here.
There you go. And I did get an email from my buddy Rob, who is he's one of the administrators on Mad Chat on Facebook. And he pointed out that we had mispronounced Dave Robinson's name in the last episode, Dave Robinson from Stiff Records. And we had said Dave Robertson. And I totally take the blame for this. I went back and I listened to it and I'm like, oh, geez, yeah, we did get it wrong. But I went back and looked at my notes, which of course, Polly, I passed you my notes. So you were working off of my notes and I had it as Robertson in my notes. So that was totally my mistake. Yes, Dave Robinson is the gentleman's name. I apologize. That was on me. And we'll make sure we don't make that mistake again. So thank you for pointing that out.
All right, and on to a little bit about the album.
Yes.
So the sophomore album, often the curse of a lot of bands. And I would say that this one's probably maybe a little bit less well received critically than One Step Beyond, but I think that's due to lack of imagination on the part of the critics a little bit. I found it a super solid album. The album's all upbeat tempo, not necessarily upbeat thematically. A lot of the songs are a little bit, can be a little bit dark in terms of content, but it's a real danceable, upbeat, high energy album. And what can I say? I just absolutely love it. Like One Step Beyond, it was produced by Langer and Winston and released in 1980 on September 26th. And look, we're very, very close then to the 40th anniversary of that album.
Woohoo!
And Laurie, you want to take a little bit on this?
I think this is notable for a number of reasons. I think we're really starting to hear that Madness is coming into their own sound. I think on One Step Beyond, it was a little bit more of a hodgepodge. There's a little bit of everything here. And now we're starting to see a little bit more consistency. I think it's notable because there's no cover songs on this album, right? One Step Beyond, I think we counted 5. So now they're writing their own songs more consistently. They're coming into their own sound. I think Suggs even said in an interview that Two Tone was great, but absolutely was more of a reflection of where we were at the time than One Step Beyond. Also, another thing that's notable about this album is now Chaz Smash is officially a member of the band. This happened sometime in mid-1980. We don't know exactly when. The details are kind of fuzzy. Everybody seems to remember it a little bit differently. But he is now officially the 7th member of Madness. So the title of the album, Polly, you know where it comes from?
So it was suggested by a tour manager, Tony Duffield. And I guess it's sort of like his own little catchphrase, always interjecting it into conversation. I guess, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Who else do we know that has that catchphrase, absolutely, Polly? That's one of your catchphrases, I've noticed. You say that a lot.
Yeah. Instead of saying yeah or like, I suppose it's just one of those filler words for me.
Well, that's cool. That's all right.
Absolutely.
It's a very nice positive word, right? And so,
sure.
Well, rumor has it that after Tony Duffield was no longer working with Madness, he went on to the band Yaz. And supposedly they have an album out that's called You and Me Both. And I guess that was another one of Tony Duffield's catchphrases, you and me both. So that's the rumor anyway. I don't know if that's true. So the cover artwork, there were 2 pictures that were taken. This is out front of the Chalk Farm tube station. It was not taken in Camden Town. I guess they wanted to take the picture in Camden Town, but Chris Foreman said they couldn't get the right angle. I don't know what that's about. There were 2 versions of the photo, and the band really liked one version, and Dave Robinson liked the other. And of course, the one that they went with was the one that Dave Robinson liked. And that's the one with Mike Barson pointing the umbrella at his chin. It's a little bit more somber looking. I think that they eventually, when they did a re-release after, I don't know, something like 10,000 pressings or something, then they went to the second cover, which was the, I guess, more whimsical one that the band preferred. So there's actually 2 different versions of the cover out there.
Okay. So critical reception, like I said, was not as good. Some places said, is a solid album. A lot of people, I think, just the gut instinct for critics is just to pan a second album if it doesn't exactly follow in the same vein as a first successful album. Rolling Stone wasn't that sympathetic towards it. They gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. They said that Madness were simply the Blues Brothers with English accents. I find that a little bit ironic. I love the Blues Brothers movies for its comedy. I love it for bringing a little bit of notoriety to artists that had been forgotten. But I think it's a bit of a hack job. And so I don't appreciate that analogy. I think the Blues Brothers was just people ripping off established acts, and I think Madness, particularly on a second album where they're not doing covers, they are establishing themselves as artists. I could talk at length about how I feel that Absolutely is not appreciated, or at least was not appreciated at the time for what it was. Only peaked at 146 on Billboard, and the singles, nothing charted in the United States. They did chart pretty well in the UK for a few of them. Baggy Trousers, Embarrassment, and Return of the Lost Palmas 7 all did a little bit on the charts in the UK. Baggy Trousers got number 3, so that's probably their most notable one.
So it hurts my heart a little bit to hear you ripping on the Blues Brothers, because I loved the Blues Brothers back in the 80s. Briefcase Full of Blues, I think I wore my copy out. And in 8th grade, my best friend Shelley Weaver and I dressed as Jake and Elwood for Halloween. But it is what it is, and as you said, they were covers. I disagree that they were poorly put together, because the artists that they had backing them up were amazing. I mean, they had Steve Cropper, who worked with Elvis Presley. They had a really, really good team.
Yeah, the Stax record guys were great.
Yeah. But in the end, though, it was Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, who were primarily known for comedy. I don't know. I might cut that out. I might leave that in. We'll see. All right.
Do what you want.
All right. Do you want to introduce the first song?
Sure. So first up, of course, first track, and probably the most famous track on the album, Baggy Trousers. And let's take a listen to it now.
Naughty boys in nasty schools, headmasters breaking all the rules, having fun and playing pool, smashing up the woodwork tools. All the teachers in the pub, passing round a ready rub, trying not to think of when the lunchtime bell will ring again. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learned at school was how to bend, not break the rule. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference too. The headmasters had enough today. All the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next to school. Every turn that is the rule.
Yeah. So this is one of their best known songs, right? And that intro, that bell, it's so iconic. That's actually Woody playing drumsticks on a fire extinguisher. That's how they got that sound in the beginning. Chris Foreman had said that it has a smidge of Hootsman by the Lord Rockingham's 11. You probably know more about them than I do.
So I'm not super familiar with that song. I do remember the name Lord Rockingham's, but I guess I can barely recollect a bit of that. I could kind of see where they're getting that. Okay.
Well, so I know that Suggs has said that this was partly inspired by the Pink Floyd song Another Brick in the Wall. The idea was, another brick in the wall. Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone. And then Suggs was like, okay, well, this is the opposite. This is, hey, students, leave those teachers alone. And that kind of is the theme that permeates this song.
Yeah, I think thematically it's, falls right in line with what we've talked about before on the previous couple of podcasts, with the playfulness of the band, the tongue-in-cheek attitude they take to a lot of things. It's a fun song, a funny song. I feel it really, really portrays, what kids feel about school, how kids act at school. I think it's super relatable. And if you can get that in a song, all the better.
So, yeah, I love the song too. There were some things in this song that were confusing to me, being an American. Number one, all the teachers in the pub passing around the Ready Rub. I had to look that up. I didn't know what that was. I'm thinking it's some kind of ointment or something. It's pipe tobacco. So the teachers are sitting in the pub passing around pipe tobacco. Yeah. And then the other thing, and this is just like, I guess maybe a weird hang up of mine, that word trousers drives me nuts. Nobody talks that way. Nobody calls them trousers. Maybe my grandfather called them trousers. It's like my grandfather also used to refer to the sofa as the Davenport. I mean, that's just nobody under the age of 60 talks that way. So that word, I have a weird hang up with that word. And the other thing that this reminds me of, and I was thinking about this the other day, because I know you're a Dr. Demento fan. Do you remember the song, Donald, Where's Your Trousers?
Again, you're pushing me to remember, but yeah, I do believe I remember that song.
So other than the language I get stuck on, or a push bike. I don't know what a push bike is. Is that like a scooter? There's some language in here that I get stuck on. But otherwise, yeah, it's a fun song. It's a great song. The band just launched. They were doing a fan lip sync challenge for the 40th anniversary of this song. They haven't put it out yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I know that this was also Mike Barson's first time playing a harmonica. He's playing the Hohner Super 64 Chromonica, for those of you that keep track of such things.
one more for baggy trousers.
Sure.
If you watch concert footage or if you go to a show, by all means, that is going to be one of the better received songs. And another case of where it's just a sea of people bouncing up and down, really a lot of crowd involvement, definitely a huge favorite live.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that. That sounds amazing. Okay, so this next track on Absolutely, track 2, Embarrassment.
Received a letter just the other day. Don't seem to wanna know you no more. They've laid it down, giving you their score. Within the first 2 lines, it must be read. You're not to come see us no more. Keep away from our door. Don't come round here no more. What on earth did you do that for? Our own, she don't wanna know. She says, what will the neighbours think? They'll think we don't, that's what they'll think. We don't, but I will, cause I know they think I don't. Our uncle, we don't wanna know. He says, we are disgrace to the human race. He says, how can you show your face when you're disgrace to the human race?
All right, so I love Embarrassment. This is, the song was inspired by Lee's sister Tracy, Lee Thompson, the saxophonist. So Tracy had a mixed race baby, and in the late 70s, early 80s, this was still taboo, and his family pretty much disowned her. That's what the lyrics are about, right? You know, what will the neighbors think, right? I mean, that's a line of the song. And so it was really, obviously, you know, very, very tense. From what I understand, once the baby was born and the family met the baby, they fell in love with the baby instantly, and it was never again an issue. But the lyrics itself, I mean, it even not knowing that as the background, this idea of, you know, the parents just kind of, you know, you're an embarrassment, you know, scolding because of something that you've done that they just can't cope with. And I think that that's a very, very universal theme.
Absolutely, and it's a credit to their songwriting skills that they do take an up-tempo song, they load it with, you know, a lot of dicey emotional content and still pull it off really, really well. Anybody else, you'd have to have a real low tempo, somber sounding song to get the point across. I think it's fantastic what they did with that song. And just got to put it out there. It's not as though we've progressed a great deal as a society since then. Still the sort of things that cause an awful lot of rift in a lot of families, and kind of sad to see that can still be the case.
Yeah, very sad. All you have to do is turn on the news, right? I agree with you, and a lot of the songs on this album really have this juxtaposition with this kind of bouncy up-tempo music, but then the subject matter itself is very bleak, and I think this is one of those, but it works. I don't know that many bands can pull that off the way that Madness does. Also, you might have noticed Chaz is now playing the trumpet. He had learned the trumpet, I guess. I don't know if that was a condition for him to be a member of the band or whatever, but he's playing the trumpet in this song. And according to Chris Foreman, Paul Willer actually cited the song as inspiring a town called Malice, which I thought was interesting.
That was news to me. This is the first time I've heard of that. But God, what a fantastic pair of songs. Shame. I think that was the Town Called Malice was on The Gift. I do think that was the last Jam album, but God, what a fantastic song. To think it's got its pedigree, you know, in a Madness song. Couldn't make me happier. So the next song we've got is Ernie, E-R-N-I-E, the acronym, and it is written by Suggs and Christy Boy. So let's take a listen.
Yes, I've from doing work, the washer of your dishes, and you still get your
So, okay, so Ernie stands for Electronic Random Number Indicator Equipment. It was a lottery system that was introduced in Britain in 1957. So this is in effect, this is as if somebody in America wrote a song about Powerball.
Yeah, kudos to them. Not a subject you'd think anybody would come up with. And of course, many people know that there's really not anything like a random number generator. At least that's the last I heard. It doesn't exist out there in the world because it's electronically not possible to do that. So there you go. Maybe they were getting robbed.
And you know that I am a college professor that teaches computer information systems. So we talk a lot about random number generators. And you are absolutely correct. There is no such thing as a truly random number generator. And I think that's part of the reason why in the United States, all of our lotteries have the little ping pong balls, you know, that in the air, and that it's randomized that way, because there is no way that you can hack that.
All right, so next song on the album, the fourth song, Close Escape, written by Tomo and Chrissy Boy. So why don't we give that a listen too?
That was a close escape. Had to get a new hobby to relate. Something less conspicuous. Won't take up too much time. Something less energetic for what I've got in mind. I won't be too persistent cause I'm not that way inclined. See, that's the one for me. Look under Colin says she's free. 20 fingers, 953. 415168. Hello, Miss Collins, you'll not know me. I'm in the ambulance business, see. Please, can you tell me the size how far from the knees? Oh dear, me lucky funny thing.
All right. So anybody who listened to the last podcast, anybody who knows One Step Beyond might be seeing a little bit of a theme here. Awful lot of talking about underwear in this song as well. And Chrissy Boy then says it's pretty much like a follow-up, a part two to In the Middle of the Night. This time I think might name the character George. I don't think George was named in the Middle of the Night. I can't remember.
Nice man, George.
And so he's gone from stealing knickers off. It sounds like he's doing prank calls on the phone. And there you might hear a little bit of instrumentation in there, including a sitar. And so there you go. Another interesting song about pervy characters that imagined by the guys in the band.
And we know you love your songs about your pervy characters, Polly. So
What can I say?
One of my favorite things about this particular song is the sax solo, and this is, I think, one of Lee's really top sax solos. It's it kind of reminds me of like Yakety Sax, you know, the old Benny Hill theme song, but on a higher level. I think, you know, that's my favorite part of the song.
Yeah, it's definitely, the song moves right along. Nice amount of, you know, melody in there, but super bouncy. And yeah, it's fantastic. Great example of their style at that time.
So speaking of songs about criminal activity, first we have, you know, George now making prank calls, and now we have Not Home Today.
Can cheat Providence, he wished he could go back a day. A flick of the wrist, he wished that he had missed. Not guilty is all he can say. Pass round the gossip now, let's wait and see. Pass round the train now, let's have some tea. My boys haven't seen him, is he working away? Don't bother looking.
So this is an interesting song. I didn't know much about the background about this either. Apparently it was inspired by a real life crime. There was a kid named Perry Buckland who was convicted of the murder of Ian Alexander in North London in 1979. Perry was 17 years old. And it was very, very controversial in Britain. I don't remember hearing anything about it over here in the States. But it really divided people. There was this camp of Buckland is innocent, and the no, he's guilty camp. There was a lot of tension. Kind of reminds me from what I was reading about what we were seeing over here with OJ, where granted Perry Buckland was not a celebrity of the caliber of OJ, but just the way it just really divided people, whether you thought OJ was guilty of murder or innocent. And the thing about this song that I like is that it remains neutral. I mean, they don't take a position one way or the other. Was he guilty? Was he innocent? It kind of feels like it's very sad, really, the perspective that it's coming. I don't know if it's from the perspective of the boy's mother, that he's not coming home today.
Yeah, I don't wouldn't say I know a great deal about the song or the meaning behind it. It's not something that's really laid out specifically enough in the lyrics that you can really follow the story along. It's more, I guess, establishing the feel of what it's like to know or see people incarcerated. But the lyrics are kind of loose. It's not a super solid story. And when I became familiar with the album, it's the days preceding the internet. You just didn't have access to lyrics or people's takes on it or theories about the song. So not one of those songs that really, stuck with me a great deal. But nonetheless, it's another pretty solid piece of work. If you hear, I think it's a little bit easier to hear towards the end of the song as they start to fade out a little bit. But it's got essentially, and here's where people will write in, I'm sure, essentially the same riff as My Girl 2, which is also very, very close to the melody of the Sesame Street theme song. So if you take a close listen at the end, I think you'll definitely hear a bit of what I'm talking about. I can't claim it's in the same key, but it's there, trust me. And moving on to the sixth song, On the Beat Pete. Pretty well, I guess everybody gets credit on this song, although I guess Tomo gets lead writing credits on it. And let's take a listen.
Have I rushed off to work? Hello, friend, you look after it. Are you coming? Are you going? I can never do a double shift. Great. Get some bed through. Hello, Steve, long time no see. I like the stones still on the thing. Bet you ain't I've seen some time. You should live life of crime. Have you done the time? On the beat, people who are size 10 feet on the run downtown for me. That's true. If you got the city and everything's sweet for me, that's true. Cause I'm on the beat, from a country early, try to tick blind see. People late for a seat to find sight see. Mingle with the crowd, I wonder if the yeah, be a treat cause I'm on the beat.
Another catchy tune. We have a lot of very catchy tunes.
Yeah, and when I said that Close Escape really moved along, it has nothing compared to this song. This is really a fast delivery on the lyrics.
Yeah, so fast. In fact, Chris recently said in a tweet that Suggs had murders trying to fit in all the lyrics. And he said that was a common problem with Lee's lyrics because Chris said, that man thinks Suggs is like Eminem. With the kind of rapid fire, lyrics. Interesting comparison. I've never heard Suggs compared to Eminem before, but Chris Foreman, he would know. There's also a lot of false endings at the end of this. It's like there's how many, like 3 or 4 times where it's like you think it's coming to an end and it's back. And I guess that was inspired by the ending of a Roxy Music song called Remake, Remodel.
Yeah, I was unaware that they had kind of gotten that concept from Roxy Music, where they hint on in a few songs, and one coming up here, where they do their take on boogie woogie, that was definitely occurred a great deal in boogie woogie music, was the false ending. So I kind of always assumed maybe that's where they got it from, but I guess not.
Speaking of boogie woogie, Solid Gone.
Okay, boys, let's get a real solid gone. Shake it, miss, and sister too. I'm gonna make a boogie woogie, gonna rattle in your shoes. Boogie woogie, baby. I'm gonna make it boogie, baby. I want you boogie with me, baby. Oh, that's good. Okay, listen to me, baby. Come on, baby, won't you do that right? You can boogie with me, baby, and you know I'll hold you tight. Move on over and watch this. That's the way to do it, honey. Yeah, twist, won't you boogie with me, baby? Boogie with me, baby.
Yeah, so this one fronted by Chaz. So pretty good take on rockabilly. Very solid piano on it. And I suppose it's Barson paying a bit of homage to Jerry Lee Lewis. Gene Vincent type of delivery lyrically, and, kind of a bit rockabilly, bit surfy sort of solo. And yeah, I love it. Solid, real solid song.
Yeah.
Boogie Woogie not being the sort of thing I'm too into as a fan, but I think it fits with the theme of the album, and it's great. Good work.
This is where I have to disagree with you, Polly. I do not like this song. I do not like it. Chaz, I adore you, but you are no Carl Perkins, okay? I think, rockabilly has kind of been done to death, and it's been done a lot better. It's, so for me, this is really kind of a forgettable throwaway track. So.
Well, if you look at the evolution of the band, so they're probably about 4 years into it about now, and considering the inauspicious start a lot of them had, not being real proficient musicians, I think they're still dabbling a lot. They're trying to learn their craft, and they're just kind of throwing things to the wall and see what sticks. Yeah. And it's really not a genre that they pursued much after this. So they tried it. They probably didn't like it too much, and they moved on.
Well, I know when they were first starting out, one of the covers they used to do was Jailhouse Rock. And I can kind of see some similarities between this and like Jailhouse Rock type song. So.
That must have been, Jailhouse Rock must have been Chrissy Boy's idea.
You think so? Is he a big fan of the King?
He's the big Elvis fan.
Is he? I did not know that.
Oh, huge, yeah.
All right, well, so it sounds like as far as Solid Gone, you could take it, I could leave it?
No, and speaking of take it or leave it then, of course, that'll be song number 8. Let's take a listen.
Himself not late. I don't know. How can she smell a good morning to me? How do they make a hard day's work easy? Tell me something, I'll put it to the test. Take hold of yourself and you will see how lucky we are to be free. Now you take for granted life and country.
Okay, well, this is musically very adventurous. It's really strange because of that 7/4 time, that tempo. You don't see a lot of that. It's very unusual. I was reading an interview with Woody where he was saying how because of the 7/4 time, it's like you'd see the skinheads in the crowd that would start trying to dance, and by the second measure, they're already off because it's not a regular beat, which I found interesting. So that 7/4 time, you don't see that very often. I know Pink Floyd's Money was another one that was 7/4 time, and Jocko Homo by Devo. Those are two better known songs that use this time signature, but it's really ambitious, that these guys would try something that is just so musically, what's the word I'm looking for?
Avant-garde.
Avant-garde, that's the word. Yes. So what do you think of this one?
This is, I do like it. Not exactly my favorite song on the album. It attempts to have, a lot of energy. I think the 7/4 time is about the most interesting thing about it. I didn't really connect or read a lot into the lyrics, when I started to become familiar with the song. Didn't know a great deal about it, and, solid enough, but not my favorite one on the album. And thank you for mentioning Devo. Let's see how many times we can do that.
Oh, are you a fan of Devo? You're a fan of Devo?
I'm a huge fan of Devo.
Oh.
And one similarity they've got with Madness is they're known for one song. And I think Devo's work is just much, much richer and much, much more complex than just Whip It.
Yeah.
But that's for somebody else's podcast. I can't talk at length about Devo. I'm sorry.
So you mentioned the lyrics, and this is one where I was just really having trouble making out what they were saying. So I guess the lyric is, how does she smile good morning to me? And I heard it as, how does she smell good morning to neat, which I thought is like a weird way to pronounce night. So it's not, how does she smile good morning? And I heard, how does she smell good? So yeah, this was, it's again, musically very interesting. Also, it contributed the name for their film, Madness, Take It or Leave It. It's very atmospheric though, isn't it? It's not really one of their more danceable tunes. So there was,
Agreed.
I was reading up on this. I've been studying actually for our next episode, Polly, our forthcoming episode on Lee Thompson. And
boy.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to, and I know you're going to tease me about. But I was reading that his inspiration for writing this was a riot that had occurred in Italy. I guess they were playing in Italy, and they were out of tickets. And so the fans couldn't get into the show. So they started rioting, and then they forced their way into the venue. And Lee was describing this almost like something out of a cartoon, where the police were called and they're firing smoke bombs and, arms and legs flying everywhere, like in the cloud of smoke. And then when the smoke clears, it was the police beating each other up, and the rioters, the fans, they had run off. They disappeared, like something straight out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. Now, how that relates to the actual topic of the song, I don't know. Even having read that and then listened to it again, unless they're saying, how does this happen? How do these things happen? I don't get the connection, but that's what Lee had written about this song. So yeah, take it or leave it.
He never makes anything up, so it's got to be true.
All right, so next we have Shadow of Fear. Let's give it a listen.
I walk through Camden Town in the evening, strolling silently, hardly breathing. Footsteps behind me slightly quicker, the corner of my eye a shadowy flicker. I wonder if he's after my soul again tonight. Stops the whisper with the shadow that still keeps me in his sight. I shout to passing strangers, but they don't seem aware. Don't want to get involved in a spiritual affair. Tonight worse and worse. I'm feeling brewing up an evil curse. I sense a chill creep up my spine. I want to scream, but only whine because I know.
Wow, this is another really dark one, isn't it, Polly?
Yeah, and you know, you can hear all the lyrics. It seems fairly literal. I've always took it to mean it's just you know, him walking at night. Suggs walking at night. It's a Suggs and Mike Parsons song, and feeling uncomfortable, you know, going in and out of the shadows and feeling somebody might be following him or watching him. I don't know if there's any subtext beyond that, but I just listened to it quite literally. And I'm assuming that was their goal. Unless I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that you're wrong.
No?
I think you're probably right. I'm into like dark and spooky stuff. So, you know, when Suggs sings about don't want to get involved in my spiritual affair, tonight my fears are growing worse and worse, I feel him brewing up an evil curse. So that to me is like, that's maybe beyond the idea of somebody following you, and this is now kind of in supernatural territory. So I mean, this to me, this would be like a great song to play on Halloween. You know what I mean, with all of the dark and spooky references. So it's an interesting song, though.
Yeah, you know, again, they're branching out and they're trying things, and I like it. But then again, I live in Stephen King territory, so.
Oh, that's right. You're in the middle of Maine, right?
It's just like Stephen King describes it. We're all vampires and rabid dogs here.
Do you want to introduce the next song?
All right, so we've got Disappear, another song with Suggs having writing credits, along with Betters, who at this point doesn't have a ton of credits, and I don't recall whether they were a songwriting pair up until now. Maybe I'm wrong. I might want to check my notes on that. So let's take a listen to Disappear.
Walls on the water, ceilings full of echo laughs, some things disappeared. Gurus on roller skates, capital for swinging face, the area is to be cleared. A stab in the back, the smoke and the black as it moulders to his grave. Disappear with the fun and the fear, another chance to misbehave. Organ tickling, organ, Mary's planning children, spinning round and round. Rusty springs and roundabout discos.
I really like this one. This is it's bouncy. I notice a lot of songs that Betters has a writing credit on have that kind of bounciness to it. And again, there's that juxtaposition of the subject matter to the tone of the music, because I think this wasn't it written about Alexander Palace burning down the venue in Britain? I think that was actually what inspired this.
Yeah, I believe it was. You know, I've only you know, looked into this song lately, but you must have found the same information as me. Yeah, that's what I believe Barson had said, that it was about the Alexander Palace.
The one lyric to this song that just sticks with me is "Gurus on roller skates." I went through a period in my childhood where I lived on roller skates. I did everything on roller skates. So anytime we have a mention of not just roller skates, but gurus on roller skates, I'm all ears. But I like this song. This is to me, it makes me happy. It makes me happy listening to this song.
No, absolutely. I think it's one of the stronger songs on the album, and kind of, you know, gives an indication of where they're going to go with a lot of their music in the future, and where they do go for a little bit more danceable, a lot more pop. Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic.
Did you catch that there's a sitar in this song too? You mentioned that there was one in Close Escape. So we're getting experimental with the instruments here too. And it really blends nicely with the song, I think.
Yeah, I think the instrumentation on the whole song is actually quite good.
Yeah. So speaking of getting experimental, let's listen to Overdone.
Door locked open, door locked shut. See you soon, hopefully not. I've been and gone so many times without a word I've dropped, no line. Just look forward, never back. Selfish bastard, teeth up right.
All right, so Overdone. This one was written by Lee Thompson and Chris Foreman. And they were attempting to write a song in the style of Chic. You know, Le Freak, c'est chic, right? You remember them, 70s disco?
I'm quite familiar.
Yeah, and Chris said that he was trying to get a Nile Rodgers fast, tight, clipped style. And he says he cheated by slowing down the tape, and that's how he was able to do that. Whether or not they achieved that chic sound, I think is subject to debate. I know as far as the lyrics, Lee has said that it's an apology to his mother. That he says he never brought the song up with her, but it's like a hidden message to her. The idea that, yeah, I guess his father had been very much a criminal, and that Lee was initially starting to follow in his father's footsteps, and that must have been very disappointing to his mother. And so this was his way of getting out that apology, and he describes it as a letter of regret, which I did not know, and I found that very touching.
Yeah, I hadn't really heard Lee's explanation before, but I guess it makes sense if you listen to the song. I had heard Chris mention before about the reference to Nile Rodgers, and I think it really, really makes sense. And they're already starting to progress from the ska revival band into a pop band. And as a guitarist, if you were familiar with playing ska and you were looking to do new things, a real natural progression would be to try to go towards an R&B pop sort of style. And Nile Rodgers, a fantastic guitarist, great producer, and it's no wonder that he would look for inspiration for his, what would transform into his next style of guitar playing. So hats off to him. It's a fantastic idea, and I think it's a lovely song. Absolutely one of my favorites on the album. But I probably said that 4 times already.
Well, here's something I bet maybe you know, or maybe you don't know about Chris. So he's left-handed, but he plays his guitar with his right hand, much like Paul McCartney.
No, actually, never heard that.
Yeah.
But he plays it the same. He plays it the same as a right-handed person would.
Yes.
That must be hard.
Right? I can't imagine. I can't even imagine.
All right.
Yeah. So Overdone, I guess, is also significant because it's the longest song on the album at a whole 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So the band is always keeping it really short and tight, at least for their first few albums. Now, eventually that's going to change. But much like One Step Beyond, where we had 15 very short and tight songs, now absolutely we've got 14. And we're on number 12. Shall we listen to In the Rain?
I
So we've got a song here, again, another one where everybody in the band gets songwriting credits, but Suggs gets the lead songwriting credit. It's an older song. It wasn't done specifically for this album. It was done on the sessions that they did for One Step Beyond. And they were trying to kind of mimic a little bit of the intro of Police and Thieves by The Clash. Of course, it's a much older song than The Clash. And super, super solid. And another great example of how they can kind of speak to the anguish of young men in relationships. And I think an awful lot of In the Rain is about a guy really not knowing how he's supposed to fit into the relationship, what the girl in the relationship really wants out of him, and a lot of angst, a lot of anxiety in the song, and great songwriting.
Okay, you said you've had enough, what can I say? I suppose I'll be sad for a week or two, but in the end it's the same for me and you. We'll both be sorry through and through.
Great, great example again, much like the previous song, about relationship and this time getting dumped. Maybe it's the part 2 to the previous one. So You Said is mostly the retelling of the conversation, I think, leading to the breakup. It's the, you said you're leaving, that's okay. I think there's a lot of false bravado in that. I think the guy's definitely still hurting, but he's trying to appear that it's he can shrug it off. Yeah, solid song. But I'm not sounding that enthusiastic. Maybe I've got some reservations about it.
Oh, okay. All right. So then the last track on the album, which our listeners will know because we're using it as our theme song, The Return of the Las Palmas 7. Let's give it a listen. Another catchy tune. It's one of those that, it's an earworm. It gets in your head and it doesn't let out, So I understand that this is Dave Robinson, again, from Stiff Records. He wanted them to do another instrumental song. He felt that was one of the band's strengths, like One Step Beyond, being mostly instrumental. So he really pushed for another instrumental, and that's kind of where this came from. It's a fun song. It's a fun video. Have you seen the cover of the single of this one, Polly, with the logo?
Yeah, and it's the single that has the Nutty Boys comic book in it, I believe.
I thought it was my imagination. I saw the logo with their faces, and I thought, God, that looks like the Pep Boys logo, right? The American Auto Repair Company. But I'm thinking, there's no way. How would they be inspired by that? But I guess they actually did. When they were in California touring, they had seen the Pep Boys logo, and that inspired the cover of the single with the faces like the Pep Boys logo. So little American connection there.
We've got one.
Yay!
Yeah, it's hooray for us, USA. Yeah, and it's another great example where they're modeling their style after different regional or different national music. And yeah, it's super fun. It's a lot like a spaghetti Western. And yeah, there's not any listening to it and not feeling the need to move. It's a really fun song, a really great intro for a podcast. And yeah, no wonder it was one of the more popular songs on the album.
Well, that brings us to the end of the album. So, I'm going to ask you, because I asked you last time too, Polly, favorite song and least favorite song.
Well, so I'm going to go ahead and say that Baggy Trousers is my most favorite. I promise listeners, as time goes on, we talk about more albums, I don't just automatically say the most popular song on the album, but that's such an endearing song. And I think, didn't I kind of say Disappear was my least favorite?
Really?
Maybe take it or leave it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in the practice of saying what my least favorite of anything is.
Okay.
So I can always change my mind on that.
Okay. Well, Disappear is a close contender for me for my favorite track. I'm between Disappear and Close Escape. Not counting the singles like Embarrassment. Embarrassment is a really, really good song, and it's Lee's lyricism. Lee's lyrics, I think are really
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're really on point, and other songs on this album too. Lee is really bringing some very personal stuff into these lyrics, but they're also very universal themes that really resonate with me. So Embarrassment's very strong. Disappear I love, but I think my favorite track on the album is probably Close Escape. I think it's just got that fun kind of a bouncy beat to it, the yakety sax. I could see this being a theme song for like a TV show or something, like a sitcom. I don't know. Least favorite, I think I've already said, is Solid Gone. It doesn't do anything for me. A little preview for our listeners, what's coming up in 2 weeks. We've decided that we're going to do a special episode dedicated to Lee J. Thompson. We're going to talk about his songwriting. We're going to talk about his contributions, not only to Madness, but to some of his other projects, Crunch, the Lee Thompson Ska Orchestra. There's a few other ones out there that we're going to touch on. And Polly, you and I are also going to count down our top 5 songs which Lee has contributed to, songwriting-wise. I don't know. I didn't mention that before, did I? This is the first you're hearing of it. But so that's our plan. But it's become a tradition that we pick a song to end our podcast, right? To play it out, as it were. And Polly, you had an idea for what you wanted us to end the podcast with today. Do you want to talk about that?
As many people know, last week, Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals died. Some people say Maytals. I've always said Maytals. Just a huge, huge legend in the reggae world. Very, very sad to hear of his passing. And when Laurie was asking what we might do for a song, I requested that maybe we do something to honor him. And being a Madness fan and a podcast about Madness, Laurie scoured the interwebs for any version that we could come up with of 5446. And you came up with a super, super fun one. So I would love it if we could play that on the exit.
Awesome. So this was the band preparing for, I think this was a rehearsal. I don't think this was the actual recording from the show, but this was from Madstock in '98. They did this as one of their encores. Now, when they played it on stage, they actually did play it with Toots. Toots or Toots? Toots, right?
I've always said Toots.
Okay. Well, see, again, you would know more than I. But I believe this was from their rehearsal before the show. So it's catchy.
And it's great to have it immortalized because they make a bit of a mess of it, and that's fun in of its own right. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see everybody here in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. See you everybody later.
I said, yeah. Hear what I say? I said, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I say. Do you believe I would say myself? I would give it to the policeman. I wouldn't do that. I would not do that. And if I do that, what I say, sir, and I put the shotgun me now.